Good evening, race fans. Good evening, race fans. We are here this evening at Austria, the Red Bull Ring, for the start of our Season 5 GT3 season. Joining us up in the booth, I'm Josh, and you have John Price, John Dinkle, and Matt Nordberg. Guys, we have an exciting one on our hands here tonight. John, take it away. John?
Yeah, very much. Good evening, everybody watching there at home or wherever you are in the world. We've got a great season ahead of us here. Our opening race for the Summer 2022 CiL GT3 Championship, and like Josh said, we are out here at Red Bull Ring in Austria. 10 turns for these drivers to try to claim 2 victories at the end of the night. The format does not change from last season, where they have 2 25-minute races with a top 12 invert in between the races. But and we'll get onto a lot more of that later. Also joining me, just like Josh said, are John Dinkle, Matt Nordberg. John, what are your thoughts going into this race? What do you think about the slight altercation to the rules, and how do you envision this one going?
Yeah, glad to be here. I think mainly on the track, it's going to be an interesting one, I feel, because I heard a lot in practice about like a wing 6 being the meta here. So like about a mid downforce setup, but I would imagine it actually kind of low given the 3 back-to-back straightaways we have on the Red Bull Ring. So I'm wondering if there's going to be any sort of setup differences that might give an advantage from anyone trying to go really bold with this low downforce setup. It'd be interesting to see if that happens.
Yeah, definitely agree. Definitely agree. We heard a lot about that in the lead up to this race here, guys chatting about which setup they wanted to run, who was tweaking what setups and when and where on what sort of surface conditions, because today they have a 71-degree ambient temperature and 88-degree track temperature, so not too hot out there, cloudy skies, quite a lot of humidity out there, Matthew. I'm wondering if that's going to affect these guys too much tonight.
Yeah, definitely with a lot of humidity in the air. Sometimes with iRacing you get a little bit of some fog effect, but it doesn't look too bad around the track. But one thing that I am really looking at this weekend, or this race, is the fact that the alumni class, we've got some new faces in that class compared to last season. It's about graduation time for most colleges around the U.S. and Canada. So some students graduating up from student to alumni, some pretty fast students such as Thomas Toomey, Kyle Bonin, both very quick drivers in the last season in the student class, moving up to the alumni class this year. That's normally notified with 3 numbers in their race numbers. So, for example, you have Thomas Toomey, 166 last year. He was 66. So, looking forward to seeing how the alumni class interact with students for the race tonight.
Yeah, me too, man. I think it is going to be interesting. We've got a split timing tower over there right now, so the top 8 cars are all alumni in there, and they, of course, compete in their own class, and the students are just below that. Tyler Stone's name currently on the top of the board because he's the first one out of the gate to get here. His time in qualifying. The alumni have already finished their qualifying. They get the first 11 minutes of the qualifying session. So Thomas Toomey with a 129.3. He actually went 2/10 faster in practice, and he said he didn't even have a qualifying setup. So I think that bodes well for the now Virginia alumni to hopefully stretch a little bit of early lead as it enters the race. But Kyle Bonin just behind him, not far at all actually, about half a tenth off for the new Clemson alumni, and then a couple of familiar faces behind him. Ted Burns back to the league again, 2/10 off of him. Carl Lempool, who in some ways is in some ways is Ted's teammate, but races for his own school. They both work together as race engineers for Kelly Moss Road and Race, and then just behind them, Scott Ratliff for Pitt State, finishing up his last lap right now. And then the students already out on their out laps, getting ready to rumble. What are we thinking for qualifying strategy here, guys? What do you think? Are we going to try to follow really close behind the car in front, or try to get some clean air over your nose, John?
Yeah, you can see, I see Michael Tognati. I see that he's like behind a couple of cars into the back sector. I think he's on his out lap. He has a 2 digits. That's a student driver. See someone spun there, right there, but I think it looks like he's trying to get a draft onto the first of these straightaways, side first. I imagine he's trying to get a nice draft to set himself good, nice quick lap time. But he will not want to be behind somebody coming to the last couple turns, because you want that downforce spin with that dirty air to slow you down. It looks like he's backing off. It looks like he's going to go wide at turn 1. So they have plenty of time, so it's not going to be too much of a rush, but we definitely do not want to give it some good track time.
Yeah, definitely. 11 minutes is enough to set a qualifying time, but not a lot. You can get maybe, 2, 3 really proper laps in before the tires start to fall off, and of course it takes time to get them a little bit up to temperature as well, usually about 1 to 2 laps, and so you really have to sort of find your window. And it looked like he just got a little bit loose on the exit of turn 9, whoever it was that spun there. Probably not so much loose on the exit, probably loose on the entry. That's an easy place to over-rotate the car. One of the trickier corners out here. I'm sure we'll hop on board with a student here in a moment and take us on board for a quality lap all the way through. But like I mentioned, 10 corners out there. There's really only 7 proper corners, guys, I would say. Like turn 2 doesn't really exist. Turn 5 arguably doesn't really exist either. And still not so much turn 10 either. But here we go on board with Thomas Crump for Clemson, about to start a flying lap here across the line in his car of choice tonight, the Lamborghini. Up to 5th gear, and I'm looking for that 100-meter marker on the left-hand side, down into turn 1, avoid the bump on the inside, barely straddle that sort of sausage curve there on the outside. These cars seem to be able to handle that curve quite a lot more than some of the more conventional races we see out here that involve open-wheelers, and then try to find that shortest distance over to the 100-meter board again for braking for turn 3. We already passed turn 2, it's just a kink in the straight. Now open up the steering as fast as you can, up through the gears, all the way down to 1st gear there for turn 3. It's the heaviest braking zone on the course, and it's not even close. Now we have a tricky braking zone downhill into turn 4, looking for just between the 100 and the 50 board. We'll see how close he gets to the apex. Absolutely nails it. Perfect line from him out there, and then uses up all of the track on the exit of turn 4. It looks like a really good line so far for Thomas Crump. Turns in at that 50 board for turn 6, and then slowly squeezes on the power. Doesn't want to run out too wide into turn 7 here. Just going to be a bit of a brake drag, and then straight back to the power. Try to eat as much curb as you can of turn 8, and then it gets set up for turn 9. Another downhill tricky braking section. Going to look for just past that 100 marker board on the left there. Get it turned in early. Can't run too wide on exit, otherwise you will pick up an off track. That's absolutely perfect there from Crump. And then same thing here on the last corner, turn 10. Could even use maybe a couple extra inches on the outside, but we'll see where that lap puts him when he crosses the line. And that puts him up there in 4th, guys, a 29.9 second lap. Matt, that's not at all a bad lap, I would say, for a first run.
No, absolutely. That was a pretty solid lap, especially as Thomas continues to get his tires at the temperature right into the working range. Normally it takes about maybe an out lap and maybe one flying lap, and after that, your tires get pretty close to that working temperature. So I'd expect faster times, maybe an extra 2-3 tenths to come from Thomas Crump, but still a very good bang you'll have to put in for the first half of this session.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. Right on board with Fema Leclair from St. Clair College. Finished out last season with a podium on the oval side. Well-deserved one indeed. She had 2 podiums to her name on the oval side. Yet to find her first podium on the road side. I'm sure she's going to try to fix that one here tonight if she can. Still looks like she's getting those tires up to temperature in that St. Clair College Porsche. And then several other cars yet to go out there and set a lap. Jamie Lawrence, a long-standing, well-known name in this league, usually pops in for a race or two when his schedule will allow for the time to do so. Has decided to join us here, but he decided not to set a lap, guys. That's pretty characteristic for those of us that know Jamie Lawrence. He typically likes that sort of start from the back challenge and work his way up to the front. And one notable name, I don't think we've talked about him yet, guys, that isn't present on this roster tonight is Sean Campbell, of course, the I think technically 3-time CiL champion, because he, of course, won both road and oval last season, and was one of the guys to beat in the series, who did a great job with providing setups to everybody. He is elected to forgo his participation in the league this season and focus on slightly higher racing endeavors within iRacing, let's say, but we wish him the best. Kind of miss him to some extent, but I'm sure guys like Thomas Toomey don't mind having a clear track in front of them without a Sean Campbell to catch up on, guys.
Yeah, certainly. I know I think that was sort of the joke last season was if you had to make a bet on a CiL race, Sean Campbell was the easy bet. It was a shoe-in practically. So I'm sure if I was on track right now, I'd sure would be glad that I wouldn't have to share the track. I wouldn't have a fighting chance. So I'm glad that we have that unpredictability.
Yeah, certainly a little bit more unpredictability. Probably a few extra points on grab for some guys that were just outside the podium last season, more or less. Now there's an open podium spot, more or less, now, as Fema Leclair gets a little wrong off the exit of turn 10 there, just barely dipped a wheel into the dirt, and that's all it takes. So you really want to get to that throttle as fast as you can, but you get to it too fast, you run a little bit too wide, and that almost always results on a spin. I think that was exit of turn 4, actually, now that I look at it again, and accidentally tags the 07 car of Jake Cummings in the process of doing so, and then gets it gathered back up there. And yeah, unfortunate. Very easy thing to do. We've seen it happen in Formula 1 even. I mean, I can count numerous times in the last couple of times we've been to Austria to watch F1. At least 2 times a race, there's somebody dipping a wheel in the dirt and struggling to recover the car. So definitely a common ground there. But meanwhile, Thomas Toomey still technically in the overall pole position. In fact, the top 3 right now are still alumni. Thomas Toomey leading that group, Kyle Bonnet and Ted Burns just behind. Hagen Johnson is the fastest student out there. He's 3/10 off of that 129.32 we said earlier. Thomas Crump just behind him. So Hagen bumping Thomas Crump for that 4th position and the top spot in the student championship at the moment. And then Carl Lemkel still holding on to a good qualifying position there, Matt in 6th. You know, we've seen a lot of great racing come from Carl over the multiple seasons he's competed in, and has always been one of those top guys, but it seems he always has just a stroke of bad luck somewhere in the race. You know, I kind of hope we see him overcome that tonight and hopefully claim a podium. I think he's in a good position to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Carl can really take advantage if there's a little bit of chaos in front of him in the front, you know, the top 5, where he might be able to sneak into the podium position. But what he also might be able to do is that there is a top 12 invert after the first race. So if things maybe aren't as good for Carl in the first race, he always has that chance to come back, get himself into a position to be in the top half of that invert in the second sprint race tonight, and hopefully put himself in a good position where, you know, if his first race isn't great, he still has the second race to make up some ground and good points to win.
Yeah, absolutely. That invert is absolutely key. We saw guys take advantage of it all last season as well, which is where we introduced this 2-heat format where if you finish 12th in the first race, you're starting on pole in the second race. That is a huge benefit to guys that are maybe struggling for a little bit of pace, maybe needed some extra time for setup work for whatever track that we're at that particular week. Great advantage and a good way to sort of mix up the field and ensure that whatever we see tonight, it's probably going to be a fun race to watch as we come down here the last 2 minutes left in qualifying. Ryan Whitlock for University of Alabama at Huntsville, still trying to get a good lap hooked up here. He's not doing too bad, about 7/10 off. I know that Lamborghini has a little bit more time in him, though. He's been pretty quick overall in most of the seasons. I think he had mostly top 5 finishes last season, so that Alabama Huntsville team, not at all slow out there on the course, but I'm sure he'd like to start up a little bit further up than 7th at least. But John, there's a couple other names in that field that surprised me that they haven't made it up any further, specifically Fema Leclair, 2.5 seconds off. I would have thought that she would have had at least been within a second probably of that top spot, but looks like she's struggling some with this track.
Yeah, as I was saying, the setup is very strange. I think in practice I saw a lot of people struggle with oversteer. I think I saw some people on Twitter, I think it's at 5 and 6. You kind of want to slide the car out, so I think you want to be able to run the car on the edge, but you don't want to run it over, right? So I think that sort of risk everyone wants, especially during qualifying, you want to put everything on the table. But maybe other people are putting more on the getting more out of their cars than are.
Yeah, it's very possible. It is hard to hook up that perfect qualifying lap. All it takes is one tiny mistake. You miss a braking marker by 4 meters, 3 meters, and all of a sudden you're 3/10 down on your optimum and struggling to find where all your pace went. I know it happens to me. It happens to everybody that does this, whether it's in real life or iRacing. That perfect qualifying lap is extremely hard to come by. And if you don't have a car that's willing to work with you to achieve that lap time, it makes it even harder. A car that's easy to drive is almost always fast to drive anyways. So anyways, it's looking like with just a couple seconds and the checkered flag would be out in qualifying right now, that Thomas Toomey is going to be the pole sitter for tonight. Everybody finished up their laps there. So Josh, why don't we take us through the grid?
Yes, sir. It's a 23-car grid tonight. Looks like your pole sitter right now is going to be Thomas Toomey from the University of Virginia. Cavaliers at the point to start. Going to be a rolling start for this one. Kyle Bonin from Clemson University in second. Third place and fourth place is going to be Clemson, Hagen Johnson, and Thomas Crump. And fifth place, Ryan Whitlock from the University of Alabama at Huntsville. Clemson University's Andrew Williams in P6 to start. P7 is going to be Fema Leclair from St. Clair College, a strong esports program and getting stronger as we go through these seasons, guys. Andrew Burrell, again, from Clemson University, part of that Orange Wheel Racing Club in P8. Nick Stockner from Clemson University, and then St. Clair College's Tyler Stone is going to finish the top 10 to start. Looks like it's going to be in the second class, Theodore Burns and Carl Lemkool, St. Louis University, and then Scott Ratliff and San Diego's Jamie Lawrence in P4. Looks like some other starters are going to be Mike Tagliani from Clemson University and Jake Cummings starting in his class. Joe Hutzler and Hunter Haddesty from Clemson University. Shay McNeely is from Oregon State University. Kyle Wood from Ball State University. That rounds out our grid, guys. And so, John, what can we expect for tonight, and where are the pitfalls going to be?
Yeah, I think it's going to be just keeping your head calm and keeping your eyes in front. Don't want to be watching your mirrors too much, trying to needlessly defend from cars behind, because this track does have plenty of overtaking opportunities. Specifically down there into turn 3 is a big one. Guys like to send it in there late on the brakes and get that car stopped hard on the inside and then cut off the exit. Down into turn 4 is another one if you can't make that one work. The next sort of section is difficult to pass through. It can be done, but it is risky. So if you just keep your eyes forward and keep focused on the task at hand, these guys should make it through this race without any issues. But I don't want to give them the commentator's curse too early, Josh. The pace car is pulling off there into pit lane. On the front row, it is Thomas Toomey and Kyle Bonin. 5 of the top 10 student cars are Clemson cars, so this could be a great race for them. And it looks like Thomas has gone early, and Kyle is right there on his outside. Kyle covering that outside line, making sure Thomas can't come back up to follow that racing line for the entrance. Mercedes just behind, slipping in on the inside of Kyle Bonin, trying to look for a gap there. Hagen Johnson is, but nothing doing yet. Everybody more or less single file through that first corner, no instance yet. And now, John, it's a drag race up to turn 3.
Yeah, they were able to make it through turn 1 cleanly, and know that's a bit hard for them to do. I think Kyle had a bit of a look down on the outside before Thomas closed the door. They went side by side with Hagen Johnson and Theodore Byrne. They swapped positions. So we have Hagen Johnson in P3 in his Mercedes.
Yeah, and then Ted Burns back there in 4th. Ted had a look there into turn 3 on Hagen, but Hagen did a good job to defend that move early. And Carl right on the bumper of his Kelly Moss Road and Race teammate, but separate universities for the two drivers, Ted Burns being a Wisconsin man, and then St. Louis University, for Carl Lempool. Of course, Thomas Crump just behind them, 3/10 down. Jake Cummings a little bit of a further gap back behind him, 7/10 from Jake Cummings to Thomas Crump there. And then Ryan Whitlock, I think, has lost a position off the start, now runs in 8th. Jake Cummings actually had a great start, up 3 positions. He started in 10th, up to 7th at this time. But Matthew, it looks like guys are already starting to sell into a little bit of a rhythm. Just a little bit of battling going up on there in front between Ted Burns and number 7, Hagen Johnson. But I think that might have opened up some opportunities for these guys.
Yeah, I think open to turn 1. They're almost going 3 wide, but it looks like Carl Lemko can get an outside going into turn 1. The inside that looks like Thomas Crump, but on the outside, Carl Lemko continues to hold on to 4th place. He's moving his way up in this grid after the start, but it looks like they're going to be going side by side in turn 2, a couple cars back, maybe even 3 wide if they're feeling of interest. But I think we Hagen Johnson and the Mercedes on the outside. Back to back, and then Thomas Crump going into turn 3, but hold it together. Looks like Jake Cummins spins on the inside, isn't able to avoid the wreck, but for the most part, that could have been a lot worse, John.
That could have been a lot worse indeed. That was a great save there by Thomas Crump. So yeah, it was Jake Cummings indeed that spun in the Ferrari there, the 07 car. So unfortunately, that's going to drop him back to behind Tyler Stone, now running in 20th. But yeah, great job by Crump to save that car. Got the lock on the wheel early, just kind of held it there, made sure to lock up the wheels as much as he could with the ABS on these cars, and just sort of waited. And looks like we've got Kyle Bonin spinning in the middle of the track. No, sorry, Nicholas Stockner spinning in the middle of the track. Very similar Porsche paint schemes between those two guys. But a spin there on the exit of turn 6, I think. It's an interesting place to lose the car, but if you drag the brake too much into it, sort of trail brake too much into that corner, it will make that front end light. I'm not entirely sure if that's what happened to him there, because it was certainly towards the exit that he started to spin there. So we rewind that one. It was more or less mid-corner. Maybe he had some help, actually, from Hagen Johnson just behind. There may have been contact between those two cars. We'll have to take a look at that one later. Because meanwhile, on track, Nick Daly didn't really mention his name too much in practice. Is going for a move on the inside of turn 1, just in front of Andrew Williams here, up the road in that blue UTA Audi machine on the inside now of, I think, Dan Banner, in fact, trying to make it move work here at turn 3, John. This is going to be a tricky one. He's a little bit further back on the brakes, but does he still send it up the inside? No, he thinks better of it. A little bit of wiggle there on the exit. He's going to have another opportunity potentially down into turn 4, John, but I think he's got to bide his time a little bit. He can't get too hasty this early in the race.
Yeah, certainly. I think that's normally the cause of a lot of these incidents, is someone just been a bit too aggressive, a bit too impatient, and trying to put their nose in somewhere that does not belong. And that's what we saw when they're trying to make that move on Jake Collins. It was McNeely, sorry. It seemed like as soon as he started to turn, instead of trying to stake a claim on the corner, he kind of acted smart, tried to pull out a bit. Ultimately, it seemed like he made the right decision, because now he's not wrecked. So.
Most definitely, yes, absolutely. That is always the goal. Keep your car on track as much as possible. The grass is a legal racing surface, but not one that offers very much grip or opportunity. So try to keep your car on the track still as much as possible. But yeah, Nick Daly joined the session late, so he's actually moved up from essentially last place, started with the other cars that did not set a qualifying time. So he's up 8 positions from that starting position for the number 280 car for Team Arlington. And then Jamie Lawrence, we said it before on the broadcast, he likes to start from the back and work his way up. He's done the same thing there as Nick Daly, has worked his way up into 12th position as a car down here into the tight corner of turn 3. Tricky one there for Jamie Lawrence. A little bit of inside wheel spin there. Pretty tight diff there on that Porsche, but that is one of the tools that these guys have when it comes to tuning this car is how tight do you want the diff. You can go for a very open diff and make sure the car likes to rotate nicely on entry. You can go for pre-locked diff. Looks like a locked diff, more locked diff, the number for the 007 machine of San Diego State. And gotta say, guys, he always comes up with a great paint scheme on that car. It's never a boring one. I really enjoy watching that Porsche wing his way around the track, in fact. But indeed, it looks like we've got a battle going on between Carl Lemkel and Thomas Crump up towards the front of the pack at the moment. Carl, of course, in a different class than Thomas Crump, but it doesn't particularly matter. You always want the overall win if you can take it, but Matthew, he's got to keep that in mind, right? I mean, there's no sense risking a needless move on the inside of a driver in a different class.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to race the but they are in different classes at different points of the year. Thomas Crump making a move down the inside of turn 1, can't quite get it done under the brakes. Carl Lemkel holds on to the fourth place for now, but this stretch up to turn 3 through to turn now, long stretch that lands along the straight line speed on that Audi. To make the move on the inside as Carl goes to the inside, trying to defend, but looks like they're going to be side by side going into turn 2 now. Still can't get it done with the brakes. Good defensive battling here by Carl Lemkel, but they're still going to be side by side going down into turn 4. And this is going to be a very tricky pass to make on the outside. You normally need that inside line, but if Thomas Crump can get it done before he gets to the braking zone, then he might be able to take this position as it looks like they just get it done. Thomas Crump on the outside, gets a little wiggle, touches the gravel, but keeps together. It's good side-by-side battle here going through turn 5 into turn 6. A super tough corner. We saw spins here earlier by, I think it was Andrew Williams, but looks like they're still side-by-side going down into turn 7. This is just some incredible racing between these two drivers here. Absolutely fair and clean. They've been side-by-side this entire lap, almost.
Yeah,
but
indeed.
Looks like Carl Lemkel is able just to hold on. Going now.
Yeah, I mean, solid but fair defense from Carl there, right? He gave him just enough space. Even on the exit of turn 3 at the top of the hill, he probably could have chopped down a little bit more aggressively, but elected to no. Let's give him the space. Let's keep this fair and clean. And that's definitely what we've come to expect from Carl through the course of his competitorship here in the CiL. He's done a great job representing for St. Louis University. Thomas Crump again looking for the inside of turn 1. And nothing available to him there. He's using that old Michael Schumacher tactic. Let's just pop our nose out there and see if he sees me in his mirrors and gets freaked out a little bit. But Carl's a wise old head, not going to fall victim to that one anytime soon. But I think this is still the closest battle on track, save for Ryan Whitlock and Scott Ratliff in 8th and 9th position at the moment. Looks like Thomas a little bit slow off the top of the hill there. And Ryan Whitlock not able to find an opportunity into turn 3 either on Scott Ratliff. And now it's in F1, this would be a bit of a DRS train at this point, but it's just sort of follow the leader all the way down there to turn 4 and see if he can make a move happen on the pit state machine just in front of him. Not quite so. You know, Matthew, it did look like Thomas Crump was a bit better on the brakes into turn 4 than Carl on that last lap around. And I dare I say, if he kept it on track, that might have been move done there and then. But it looks like he's got to follow him around for another lap at the minimum.
Yeah, it's a very tricky move to pull off around the outside. I think Alex Albon could have a few words about trying to make it past on the outside of turn 4, but still, these two battling it out on track, going down into turn 9 now. Looks like Carl's pulled out a little bit more of a gap than he had the last lap, so hopefully he can kind of keep things at bay, keep things under control, which he's doing just that right now. So this is great driving by Carl, but you know, you can't be under pressure forever. At some point, one of these two drivers is going to have to crack. Well, it looks like Thomas still, like the Schumacher has, getting a little nose to the inside to make him think, but that straight line speed of the Lamborghini is going to be a big factor going down into turn 3.
Definitely, indeed. And actually, John, now that we've reached almost halfway in this race, 9 minutes and 30 seconds elapsed on this clock as Thomas Crump looks for another move here on the outside down into turn 3. Carl's got that one covered off nice and easy, though. What are we thinking about the tires for this race? You know, with this cooler track temp, John, do you think it's going to help these guys? Do we still expect some tire difficulties towards the end of the race?
Well, it would depend on how you push them. If you go too hard, you're of course going to wear them too much. These machines do have ABS. Looks like Thomas Crump finally got the lead on Carl Lemkel, but I'm sure Carl won't surrender the fight. But yeah, if you kind of trigger the ABS on every single braking zone, you're gonna overheat your tires, and it'll eventually give up on you. Same thing if you use the traction control. If you haven't used GT3 cars, but if you can make sure you don't abuse it, you can use it, but you can't abuse it. And if you take care of your machine will take care of you. So.
Yeah, most definitely. If you keep those tires under you, as Shane McNeely's trying to do right now, chasing down Andrew Burrell and Ryan Whitlock just in front. Ryan's lost a whole heap of time to Jamie Lawrence, and that's going to be a tough one to get in front of. Shea, excellent move down there into turn 9. That's not typically a great overtaking opportunity, but Shea made an excellent example of how you can do that down there into turn 9. So great to see that Porsche with a red and black livery. Looks very similar to the old liveries from Jamie Lawrence when he used to run, but Shea representing well there. Now trying to look on the back of Ryan Whitlock. Whitlock got a decent exit off of turn 1. Will it be good enough to hold on to the spot? Shea looks to the outside, has to put 2 wheels in it. Ryan Whitlock closes the door and says, nope, thank you, not at turn 3, as it looked like Andrew Burrell went more or less straight on there. Bit of a braking issue for that Clemson car just behind, and that is going to allow Andrew Williams to sneak on through just behind there. But Matthew, it looks like Shea might just have a bit of a pace advantage over Ryan Whitlock at this stage.
Yeah, Shea's doing a great job representing Oregon State University there in that Porsche machine, but doing a good job making sure not to get involved in any incidents so far tonight. But Ryan Whitlock definitely falling back. You know, we talked about tires a little bit earlier. Maybe Ryan had a more aggressive setup on the tires, and maybe he's feeling the effects of that tire degradation now. But we'll see how long he can hold off Shea. And it looks like it might be sooner rather than later. You know,
yeah, we might have to stay with this battle for a minute, because at the moment it is the closest battle on track. 1/10 of a second down here into turn 9 is where Shea made that move work the last lap around, but not quite close enough to the back end of that University of Alabama Huntsville car. He's actually just dropping 2 wheels off in the dirt. There is Whitlock on the exit of that corner. He still managed to get a great exit off it nonetheless. And now Shea has to deal with an attacking Clemson car just on the inside there, but no gap opening just yet. Now Shea's being very cautious actually on the throttle out of turn 1, which is a great strategy, especially 12 minutes into the race. Keep those tires under you. There may be some last minute opportunities like John talked about just a moment ago. Down here into turn 3, can Andrew Williams make anything happen? That would be a very late dive indeed, but Shea gets an excellent exit off that corner. Mounts a little bit of curb there, but not too bad at all, John.
Yeah, certainly. Although we might have talked about the tires, but we haven't talked about just the damage. I think last lap, McNeely, I think, had a Clemson car, the Clemson Porsche. Just kind of tapped into the rear bumper of that 26 car. You kind of have to worry about that sometimes when you're talking so close to other cars. Are you taking care of just the bodywork? If you have a damaged wing, a damaged bumpers, damaged splitter, you're not really going to be able to use the draft to make it impact the fellow competitor. Not just take care of the tires, and take care of the fuel, and take care of the bodywork. As damaged bodywork does not make the video difference. So it looks like Ryan Whitlock got a bit loose into turn 9 there. So McNeely's going to get a nice move on the inside, but we'll see how much comes of it. And he's going to slot right back in behind Ryan Whitlock, hoping to make another move later in the race.
Yeah, I think that's the sort of situation where, and I have no idea what Shea McNeely is racing on, and whether it's a single screen monitor, triples, or VR, but that's the sort of situation where having triples or VR can really help to know exactly where that car is on the inside, so you know just how deep into that corner you can send it. But it looks like there's going to be another opportunity, perhaps on the inside this time, up into turn 3 for McNeely. Got to be late on the brakes to get the advantage over that Lamborghini, and does so. A little bit loose there on the exit, but parks it on the apex beautifully, and eliminates any advantage that Lamborghini behind was going to have coming off of that corner. Great move by McNeely there, up there into turn 3, Matthew.
Yeah, great move. It's really easy to hit the switchback coming out of turn 3 going into turn 4, but McNeely did a great job parking it a little slow on the exit, maybe purposeful, making sure that Whitlock couldn't get that strong run out of the corner of turn 3, but it was a great battle between these two. A lot of good defensive driving as well as good attacking, but Andrew Williams was on the back of his battle a little earlier ago, but looks like he kind of spun off at turn 9, turn 10, and you see a little bit of a moment in the background there by Andrew Burrell coming out of turn 6, but keeps it together as Shea McNeely making his way through the field.
Yeah, doing a good job right now. Has already opened up 7/10 over Ryan Whitlock, and we'll have to keep an eye on that 2.4 second gap right now to Michael Tognati just in front of Shea. But up at the front of the field, slowly but surely, Kyle Bonin has been closing in on Thomas Toomey. He was as close just a moment ago as about 2.5 tenths. Has now dropped back to just under a second off, about 0.86 seconds off or so. But this is very much the battle for the lead, guys. Ted Burns is 5.5 minutes. Sorry, Jesus, what am I talking about? But yeah, 5.5 seconds away. That'd be a whole nother universe of 5.5 minutes. But yeah, these guys are very much battling it out for the lead at the moment. 18 minutes elapsed so far in this race, so 6.5 to go or so. And if Kyle can make a move happen, it'll be great for that Clemson team. I know they want to win. But this is one of the few opportunities where, like we talked before in the pre-race, guys, there's no Sean Campbell in front of these guys anymore. They are battling it out for the lead this time. Not that, they couldn't have done that before, but it was more often or not, Sean Campbell had a pretty healthy margin over the rest of the field, no matter the track we went to. Thomas gets a nice amount of rotation there on the mid-corner of turn 10. Kyle Bonin a little bit struggle on exit there. For the Clemson driver, and drops back another 0.3 after that corner alone, so definitely losing some time there. These Porsches a little bit tricky to drive by some drivers' own biographies, let's say, but the tires seems to hang on to them fairly well. It makes good downforce, so it's got good high-speed turning ability. Just a little bit loose, a little bit leery over the bumps, so if you can avoid the bumps in the Porsche, it's going to treat you well. If you can figure out how to set up the car for the bumps, then it's going to be almost unbeatable, as obviously the top two drivers right now in the field, in fact, are driving them, which is just testament alone. But yeah, this is going to be a battle that's probably going to go down to those last couple of laps there. Though we probably only got, John, I'm going to guess maybe 3 or 4 laps left before that white flag comes out.
Yeah, it looks like probably about 5 minutes left until there's a 25-minute race. We're about 20 minutes in, so it's going to truncate it to probably the one less lap than we normally have. So I'd say probably 3 laps left. That's my estimate. I'm not breaking out a calculator right now.
Fair enough, I'll take it. And it looks like with that graphic up there, we can see in the speed trap Kyle Bonin a full 4 miles an hour faster in the speed trap than Thomas Toomey. That is, of course, going to be all down to the draft. I bet both these guys are running a number 6 wing on the back of this car, so straight line speed between them should be more or less identical, save for any minor adjustments for the suspension. But either way, it looks like a 29.5 for Thomas Toomey that last time around, and a 29.8. So another 0.3 of a second loss. Maybe Kyle has burned up his tires. That's one of the downsides to following a car so closely for so long, is that it does tend to wear your front tires out a good amount more because you have less turning authority, less downforce on the front end, less load going into the tires that are going to be doing all the turning on corner entry there. And Ted Burns still dropping back as well, actually, from these two guys, now 6.5 seconds back. And looks like Shea going for another move on the inside there into turn 1. Very clean move over top of Michael Tognati. So Shea has closed down that 2.5 second gap that we talked about just a couple laps ago, and has worked into the top 9 cars. Now we're in a 9th position, but 3.8 seconds off of Scott Ratliff. Does not need to defend too much down there into turn 3. I don't think that move was going to ever happen. But a very good debut race so far from Shea, showing that exactly they know where to put that car on the track at all times and execute passes where we typically don't see passes executed on. But looks like Michael under pressure now from, I think, Ryan Whitlock there over the top into turn 4 and gets the move done. Actually, no, sorry, that was Jake Cummings executing a move there. Similar graphics, but obviously that's a Ferrari, not a Lamborghini. There's probably some Italians that are very angry at me right now for getting that one confused. But Jake Cummings, great move there on the outside into turn 4. If you can get the brakes hooked up well into that corner, you can make that happen sometimes. But just like Matthew, you mentioned it earlier, between Albon and Hamilton, not a move we typically see end in a happy faces for everybody involved.
No, it's not often we see that, but as we say that, looks like Hagen Johnson is coming down the pit lane right now. Looks like he has a black flag. Must have been exceeding track limits too many times, so we'll have to serve that penalty now. That is a drive-through penalty. No stop go, just through the pit lane one time. We'll see where that takes Hagen Johnson. See if it drops him outside the top 12, but unfortunate. This track can bite you if you're a bit too generous with the track limits. Adding the four-wheel track limit really did help kind of limit some of the odd tracks, but super unfortunate for Hagen Johnson. He's a quick driver, but not a whole lot of time left in this race. Don't know if he can catch back up to the 12th place driver Dan Banner right now, so unfortunate, but we'll just have to see where he makes progress from here.
Yeah, unfortunate indeed. Not sure why he came down the pit lane. You said he might have had a black flag for maybe too many off tracks, but it looks like he's got, I think, 9 off tracks on my monitor at the moment, if I'm looking at this correctly, or just now 10, which is still 7 underneath the limit. The closest driver in terms of off tracks right now is going to be Michael Tognati, currently running in 10th. They can accrue up to 17 off-track excursions across the course of a race before they incur a penalty for doing so, and generally have to have a drive-through after that point. But no, be at terrible risk for that. Ryan Whitlock actually right on 17 right now. Kyle Bonin actually up at the top at 15. A little bit surprising for the Clemson driver. Matthew, I'm curious to get your take on this actually, because I typically think this is one of the more forgiving tracks in terms of track limits, because you can push a long way past the red and white curbing. That is arguably the more traditional track limit for a lot of tracks we see across both the Formula 1 season and most tracks in iRacing. Yet guys still seem to pick up off tracks. So what do you think the cause of that is? Does the track limits make it easier? Does it make it harder? Because we're still seeing a large number so far in this 25-minute race.
Yeah, I just think it's just the design of the runoff of the track itself, especially on the exits of turn 10 to 1 and 10. So it's super easy to run a little bit wide. As you see, it's like on board with Hagen Johnson. We're trying to get up in 12th position, get that reverse grid pull. Can't quite get it on this lap, but it looks like, are we on the last lap here?
I don't think so.
Not quite? Alright, just making sure. But yeah, Hagen Johnson, or just in general, this track, the exits of turn 1 and 10 really kind of trick drivers into thinking there's more track that's out there before you get the off track, but super easy to run a bit wider than you expect to since it is paved runoff.
Yeah, definitely a little bit easier than some would expect. And I know people watching sometimes, especially people watching F1, it's like, well, just stay on track. How hard can it be? It's like, no, it's difficult, right? It's difficult to keep the car in bounds because you've got it on the limits at all times. And if you've got the car on the limit at all times, you're bound to make a mistake at some point. You're bound to run wide. It's going to happen. Everybody makes mistakes in whatever sport they choose to play, and that's just how I think it might manifest more so in racing. Hagen, a little bit loose there. I think he got caught out. Maybe the 77 car, Dan Banner, just breaking a little bit earlier than Johnson expected there, but he had to take a little bit of evasive action on the way into turn 9, but managed to survive it. And like you mentioned earlier, Matthew, if he can crawl his way up there into 12th spot, that is the pole position for this next race around. Ryan Whitlock and Dan Banner, though, don't want to be relegated to that 13th position. So that will, of course, mean they start 13th in the next race as Dan makes a little bit of a mistake, getting a little bit entangled with Ryan Whitlock there through turn 1. That may have opened up another opportunity up to turn 3 for Hagen Johnson on the outside, late on the brakes. We've seen that Mercedes be really good on the brakes in past seasons, and it is again here tonight at Red Bull Ring down there into turn 3. Excellent move by Hagen Johnson, seizing that opportunity up there into turn 3. John, I don't know what it is that makes this Mercedes so good under brakes, but we've seen it time and time again, especially actually in the hands of Hagen Johnson. It just is absolutely monsterful on the brakes and gets stopped a good 5 feet earlier than most of the other cars.
Yeah, we're talking about that reverse grid pole, but he definitely does not really care now that he's in 11th place. He'll still be on the front row for the second race, but it's not going to be first place. But I think we might be on the last lap of this race for race 1 here.
Yeah, Thomas Toomey has taken the white flag. I think Kyle Bond has definitely dropped back a bit because he's being a bit more conservative now with his track limits. We did see him at 18 points earlier, so definitely falling back, just taking his loss and penalty for second place here.
Yeah, it definitely looks that way. 4.5 seconds off of Thomas Toomey. Ted Burns 6.3 seconds off there. And then Thomas Crump 7 seconds off. So very much a clean race for 1, 2, 3, and 4. Thomas Crump, great job actually to get up there into 4th spot. Get around Carl Lemke in that move that we saw earlier. Carl still trying to claw that back in, but not much time left at all if he's going to do that. Just a handful of corners, really. As we go back to Shea McNeely trying to find another position here on Jake Cummings. And let's see if Shea can get a move down here into turn 4. It's going to be a little bit tight. Shea's going to have to send it really deep there on the brakes, but not quite enough space to do so. Gets great mid-corner speed, though. Opens up the exit a little bit wider. Dare I say McNeely's going to be a little bit closer to the rear bumper of that 07 machine at the end of this lap. The question is, will it be enough? Because that checkered flag is out. The leaders have taken home their trophies so far. Thomas Toomey and Kyle Bonin already having crossed the line. Ted Burns crossing just now, so it's just basically 2 corners left for McNeely to try to make this move for 8th place on Jake Cummings. We'll see if McNeely can get it done into turn 9 again. No opportunity there opening up, so it's going to have to be down here into turn 10 or on the exit. Let's see if McNeely can send it in as deep as possible, but no, I think that is going to be an 8th place for Jake Cummings and a 9th place for Shea. It's still a great race for Shea, guys. I mean, that's 9 positions gained overall in the race. That's not a bad performance at all. Jamie Lawrence, I think, takes home the Hard Charger Award for this race, though, coming home 6th place, 11 seconds off of Carl Lemkool. Of course, Jamie Lawrence started back there in 19th, so that is an incredible run, that San Diego State machine all night long, or trying to work that car as much as possible. He's a master at that Porsche, and sort of showed us a little bit more there, guys, but that concludes race 1. Just a couple cars left to cross the line. They'll get a brief warm up, and then we will go straight to the second heat. John, what are our takeaways from that first race? Anything that jumped out at you?
Well, we were watching that battle between with McNeely, I think it was, on the last lap, and I think I noticed that they kind of checked out on the 3rd straightaway, and that was just interesting. You definitely tell the car in front their tires were kind of falling away, and I think they could have had a run, given a line, I believe, into turn 8. I think the move could have definitely happened, but I don't think it would have been necessary if they didn't check out.
Yeah, I agree with all of those comments there. They definitely have to be very conscious of everybody around you and what the situation is. But either way, that is your finishing order up there on the screen. Josh, do we want to get a quick read-through of the winners from that first race?
And indeed, that race is going to be your top 10. Thomas Toomey from the University of Virginia we'll speak with shortly. Clemson's Kyle Bonin. Ted Burns from Wisconsin. Thomas Crump. Carl Lemkool as your top 5 from St. Louis University. Jamie Lawrence and Scott Ratliff from Pittsburgh State University in 7th position. Jake Cummings from Wingate University, Shea McNeely, both those drivers in P8 and 9 respectively, making their CIL debut, and also making the debut, Michael Tognati from Clemson University in P10. But it is now time to be able to speak to Thomas Toomey. And Thomas from the University of Virginia, our Heat 1 winner of the first race. Thomas, what do you think about that?
That was a fun one. Kyle and I were very close for a while. He was stuck in my draft. Both of our sets were very different. His was very good into the hairpins and such, and I was a little bit more stable coming out of the final corner, and I guess I had the better overall race pace in terms of the package. I really liked the set that I was able to build about 30 minutes before this race.
Yeah, Thomas, that's great to hear. You know, one of the things that we could see in the booth that you may not were aware of, but Kyle Bonin behind you has crewed a large number of off tracks. He's up there, he's getting close to that penalty range. Is that something that you can see as a driver, kind of looking back, seeing drivers going off the track, maybe keep a mental note of that?
Yeah, definitely into turn 1, you can really extend it. I mean, I think I got about 6 off tracks. A lot of drivers who are going to struggle going into the last corner, there's a slowdown, pretty brutal slowdown for about 1.5 seconds if you extend too far, so you really got to get that one right. Yeah, but definitely in the last corner in turn 1 are big areas to put some off tracks.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear. Good luck in your next race, Thomas. Anything you want to say real quick before you head out?
Just shout out to Virginia Motorsports.
That's great to hear. Well, that was Thomas Toomey, your race 1 winner here tonight at the Red Bull Order in the CIL. You know, John, I think we saw a very exciting first race, but I'm very excited to see how the second race is going to go with that top 12 invert.
Yeah, almost certainly. That's going to be really interesting to see. I know, I think it was Hagen Johnson we were looking at, who just kind of proceeded on, wasn't really caring about the position, but I'm sure Ryan Whitlock, who's now on your race 2 pole position, he'll definitely be happy to be on the front row for this next race. Might be able to get some good points from that. He has some good pace in that Lamborghini there, so.
Yeah, had great pace indeed. We'll see if he can make anything come of that here in the second race, as we are 3 minutes and 30 seconds into this warm-up session. Drivers also have the opportunity, of course, guys, to change whatever setup items they might want to have different for this next race. So maybe some guys thought maybe 6-wing was a little bit too much. It was a bit hard to get close to the car in front, rolling up all the way there to turn 3, or they found it too hard to follow and say maybe they want to throw on a little bit more downforce. So they have that option available to them. They do not have to be locked into a setup. They do need to be locked into a car, otherwise they will incur an EOL between races. But I don't even know if iRacing will allow you to switch cars between races. I don't think they will, but nevertheless the rule still remains because it is in effect for the next race, of course. So if, say, Thomas Toomey chooses to change from his Porsche to a Audi or something like that in the following race at Laguna, he would be starting from the end of the field for race 1. But nobody incurring an ELL because it's the start of a brand new season here for the CiL. We had a good first race on our hands there, and another 25-minute race to close out the night here for all these drivers trying to represent their colleges, put the best show on as possible, and try to keep some of their college's paint on their car at the end of the night. We'll see if they can manage to do that here in the second race. But Matthew, it looks like the Porsches are pretty strong. Looks like the Mercedes aren't bad either. Only a couple BMWs in the field, though. Neither of them finishing too well. Are we starting to see a little bit of the BOP sort of work its way into the CiL here?
You know, I think absolutely. I think BOP has always been a big factor in cars throughout the entire length of the season. You know, we saw last season that Sean Campbell, if he didn't like a car for a certain track, he would completely switch it up and just take that EOL, just to have the benefits of that different car each race. So I definitely expect to see some cars strong here, and maybe at Laguna, maybe at Daytona later in the season. Those cars may also struggle, but just in general, that Porsche is super strong nearly everywhere. So expect to see a lot of Porsches coming up in the next couple of races.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure if it was just Sean Campbell thinking the car was better. I think he just picked a different car each race just to challenge himself.
I think so.
Yeah.
It's certainly a talent in his own right as we grid here for race 2 for all the marbles. Same order back of 12, but your top 12 are now going to be inverted. Ryan Whitlock from the University of Alabama, Hagen Johnson from Clemson University, Michael Tognati from Clemson University, and Shane McNeely from Oregon State. Jake Cummings from Wingate University, again making his debut. Scott Ratliff, P6, rolling off. Leader of the alumni thus far. Jamie Lawrence from San Diego State, and Carl Lemkool in 8th position. As these cars get ready to roll, Thomas Crump will be P9, and Ted Burns from Wisconsin will be 10th position. Kyle Bonin and Thomas Toomey, your former winner, are going to round out top 12. Guys, that's Thomas Toomey rolling off 12th place. That's his reward for a pretty good first heat.
A pretty good first heat indeed. But having that Mercedes on the outside, guys, I would be a little bit worried if I was Whitlock. I mean, we talked about it already. That Mercedes, very, very strong under the brakes. So if Whitlock can manage to hang on to the lead through turn 1, I think he's going to be under pressure up to turn 3 from Hagen Johnson. Because if he can get in that draft and get right up against that bumper, he can send it on the inside for turn 3, John. And I think that's going to present a problem for Whitlock. As the race gets started here, actually, as I was hardly paying attention to it, and exactly like I said, Whitlock off to a good lead here so far, and Hagen Johnson sliding just behind. Cars behind are still double file here into turn 1. Jake Cummings on the inside of McNeely there, both through cleanly. All cars through cleanly. A little bit of 3-wide action, a little bit further back with the 09 car, and a handful of others. Looks like Scott Ratliff there as well, trying to slot into the line. Still between Ted Burns and Carl Lemkool, still side by side. Those guys do not want to get tangled up with each other. That'd be a weird conversation at the water cooler at work the following day, I'm sure. But either way, Ted looks like he's making his way through just fine there, and Carl's going to slot in right behind him, John. But looks like Ryan managed to hang onto the lead through that first opening sort of sector there. So very surprised by that, but let's see if he can keep this one going.
Yeah, he had an absolutely aggressive start. What he needed, really confident his pole position leading the race, at least out of lap one, he was going to need to start. It looks like Hagen Johnson might have closed up a little bit. Not might, he has. So maybe interesting to see the prices of that. Two after these next two corners, but I'm sure neither of them want to surrender this. This is going to be 3 points, but there's going to be some really helpful points if they want to make a run at the championship this year, especially with Sean Campbell. But
Yeah.
it looks like Hagen Johnson kind of slow down on that last one.
It's very possible, you know, if you run a little bit wide, it's very easy to pick up a slowdown penalty because he is dropping back now 1.2, 1.3. It should be about a 1.6 second time penalty, and that's one of the worst places to get it because now it means he's going to be under pressure rolling up here to turn 3. Jake Cummings in that Ferrari just behind, currently occupying that 3rd position. Wants a podium a little bit further up if he can. Going to be late on the brakes, even later than the Mercedes, and try to get it nailed out of the corner. Great exit there for Johnson, though. Managed to leave Justin Napkins with between the two cars at the apex, which is exactly what you have to do if you're going to maximize your exit potential. Looks like that Ferrari straight line speed, though, is not too shabby whatsoever. Let's see if he can break deeper into turn 4. Hagen releases that brake a little bit earlier than Cummings does, but Cummings maintains his lead into the corner and out of it and secures that 2nd position over Hagen, which is exactly what Ryan Whitlock wants to see, guys. I mean, that's just music to his ears. That's putting more distance between him and a fast charging Clemson machine. But we'll see what Jake Cummings can show now. He's still battling it out there with Hagen, just trying to work that Ferrari as hard as possible. I don't know too many guys that really enjoy driving that Ferrari. But Jake Cummings, new to the series, maybe he knows something that we don't about that particular car. But yeah, just look how fast Hagen Johnson gets off the brakes and sends it into the corner and gives Jake Cummings a bump there on the exit of turn 10, pretty much right at apex. So I think we're seeing a little bit of a different driving style there for Hagen Johnson, just getting off the brakes really early. And I'm wondering actually now if Jake Cummings, no, he does not have a 1X on his board. So that is all just pure exit pace there from Hagen Johnson, Matthew. That is a really stellar drive performance from Johnson replaying that position.
Yeah, Hagen Johnson pulling his best Joe Logano impression, putting the bumper in the car in front, but just a slight bump. But in the back, it looks like Jake Cummings is far back up. Right, but maybe just a bump on that Jake Cummings machine. He's super slow. I don't know if he has a slowdown or anything, but I'm really surprised that he dropped 5 positions in just 2 corners. So, looking to be on the verge of losing another position here into CV Shade nearly in turn 4. Really tight. There's a spin up ahead. Looks like Michael Taganaki exited turn 4.
Oh, and Carl!
I think Carl spins behind him too now. There's just a big chaos coming out of turn 4 and into turn 5. But we're definitely going to see a replay of all that happening because a lot was happening at the same time there.
Yeah, that was tricky. It looked like Carl tagged Jake Cummings as well there while he was spinning. So I'm wondering if that was a little bit of a spinning and sympathy situation for some of the guys just behind. But I think it was the BMW that was up in front. Yeah, he got onto the gravel. Carl's trying to avoid now, but he himself gets out onto the gravel, I think. And the guys behind just don't really have too many places to go after that. Or does Carl had to go wide because that BMW was coming back across the track and just lost it on the grass out there. And here comes Jake, nowhere to go, and that Ferrari gets clipped by the St. Louis machine. No fault of either driver, really. Carl was trying his best to avoid the spinning BMW, and Jake just had nowhere to go once Carl was trying to recover that. So we can see that BMW getting loose there on the gravel outside of turn 4. We've seen it happen the last race. We saw it happen again here. Immediately spins up the tires and just has to smash on the brake as much as possible, try to keep that car from rolling across the track, provide a predictable target for all the guys approaching out of that corner, but it's always a difficult situation. It's a tricky corner to do that one on. You oftentimes end up in the middle of the track when you dip 2 wheels off into the gravel because it always spins to the right. It never sucks you out to the outside like we see in some other corners. It always spins you inside. So definitely a tricky one there. Sucks for Jake Cummings, sucks for Carl Lemkool, and it sucks for anybody that lost time for that one, but a very simple mistake indeed. Looks like Jamie Lawrence made his way past Ted Burns and is now occupying that 3rd position on track. Jamie Lawrence, plenty of pace there in that 007 Porsche, and now has Hagen Johnson just half a second in front of him, John, and is going to start hunting him down.
So I think we had Hagen Johnson. So he was behind Cummings in terms of a couple laps ago. Rear-ended Cummings, and it's almost like Cummings was swerving in protest of that contact. I don't know if your incident count is correct, but I thought that Cummings was swerving in protest. Not too sure what's going on there, but it's so unfortunate that that fell back so far and now was out of contention for this race entirely.
Yeah, I'm wondering if I don't trust the SDK incident counter either in this one. It doesn't seem to not accurately reflect what we've seen happen on track so far. But just a moment ago, that was Ted Burns trying to make a move on Jamie Lawrence into turn 3. But I think Ted knew that move wasn't necessarily on. He just wanted to make sure he could compromise the exit of Jamie Lawrence coming out of there so he could get a run down to turn 4, but it wasn't quite enough. But it looks like Ted has found his match here in Jamie Lawrence. Jamie running a little bit wide there on the exit of 6 into 7 now. 3 cars all on a line. Hagen's trying to keep it as clean as possible. Ted's charging fast, flashing his lights at Jamie Lawrence. He's wanting to let him know that he's going to try to make a move here as soon as he has an opportunity to. Some guys kind of get offended when you flash them with your lights sometimes in racing. I know I've gotten yelled at it before, yelled at before for using them in like LMP2 races with the GT3 cars and GTE cars, and it's like, guys, we're in different classes, come on. Into the same class, it might be a little bit of a different situation, but it doesn't look like anybody's really gaining too much there into turn 1. It's possible Ted was lifting the gas a little bit because he knows the true overtaking opportunity is right here. He's got to get right up underneath that bumper, but of course Jamie has the draft off of Hagen just in front, Matthew, so this is going to be a challenge for Ted Burns. Does Jamie defend? It doesn't look like, a late defense there to the inside. Ted goes to the outside, and Jamie actually sends it in pretty deep, got up alongside Hagen Johnson to make it a 3-wide battle on the exit of the corner, but I think that's going to be advantage to Ted. He had a clean run, or cleaner run, through the corner and is looking to make a light move over to the outside. Jamie down to the inside, rubbing with Hagen Johnson on the entry to turn 4. And Jamie, what an amazing move, amazing strat there from Ted Burns. There was a lot of action happening there in that corner, Matthew.
Yeah, Jamie's not making a difference now, but Ted Burns going down the inside, you're turn 6, trying to make you stick on this tricky off-camber corner. Gets it done on the exit. Really great move there by Ted. That's a difficult move to pull off, especially kind of the track feels like it falls away from you as you get to the exit of the corner. Kind of narrows up, but Jamie's not going to be a fan of that one. He's definitely going to be fighting back. You know, he didn't make any difference with that pass on Hagen Johnson earlier, but still not making any difference fighting back against Ted to go side by side into the last 2 corners of this Red Bull Ring track. But Ted Burns exits turn 10 on top, taking about 10 minutes, 11 minutes into the race now, up into the podium position for Jamie.
Yeah, great drive by both these guys. Elite strat by Jamie Lawrence so far, starting last in the previous race and then starting 6th during this race after working his way 13 positions up the field in the previous race. Thomas Toomey not having as good of as easy of a time working his way up through the field. Does hold the fastest lap, I think, at this point in the race, but is struggling to make his way through the field as easily as what Ted Burns and Jamie Lawrence have seen so far. But Ryan Whitlock still up in front at the moment and has a decent gap behind, looks like 5.7 seconds back to Ted Burns, which is plenty healthy, and Ryan Whitlock will be very happy to see that. Ted Burns and Jamie Lawrence's lap times 31 and 32. That is a result of them battling so much over that last couple of laps, and all that does is slow you up while you're battling. So unless you're battling for the lead, you want to try to minimize it as much as you can. But it looks like Carl might have had an issue on, well, this is going to be it right here. The car in front is Carl Lindholm, just behind the number 23 car of, I think, Andrew Burrell. I'm not quite sure. No, Andrew Williams, excuse me. So into turn 3, and yeah, I'm not sure if that was shutting the door. We might need a different angle of that to see how much space there was at the apex. But Carl getting tagged on that inside rear corner from the Clemson Porsche. Andrew Williams will watch on board here. Goes to the inside, doesn't quite brake as deep, going into slow motion here down through the gears, approaching that apex. And, oh, I hate to say it, but I do think Carl closed the door, but I don't know if the move was on for the Clemson driver. I don't know if Williams had enough space there to make a move happen either way. He was pretty far back. Race control may need to take a look at that one and see what they say about that. But meanwhile, still Ryan Whitlock leading this race away, and Ted Burns and Jamie Lawrence about 3 or 4 seconds behind now on track, with a whole gaggle of cars joining that battle for last 2 podium positions here, John. This is going to be a pretty wild race, just about halfway through, and we've got 6 cars that you can just about throw a blanket over.
Yeah, certainly. I think we have a side-by-side battle for, I think, this P6 here. We have Thomas Toomey on the inside into turn 7 here, I believe, against Kyle Bond, and these two were racing for the lead last race. So it's interesting. It's really cool to see that they're still fighting into race 2. Although it looks like Toomey has the advantage for us as of right now. But I'll tell you, who's loving all this battling, all this contact is Ryan Whitlock. He's gonna love how much these guys are battling. They've been setting a precedent that they are okay with using the bumper to try to set up a pass, giving a bit of contact. But any damage on the car, any tire wear on the car is going to set up victory for Whitlock. I'll hold my bets. I don't want to curse it for him, but certainly he's loving to see this in his mirrors, if he can even see it in his mirrors.
Most definitely, yeah. You know what kind of surprises me is guys like Ted Burns and Jamie Lawrence aren't afraid to put bumper on the other car either. Very experienced guys, not only in this series, in iRacing in general, and for some of them in real life as well. Ted Burns, a very good Formula 4 driver, in fact, raced at Indianapolis last year in the SCCA runoffs and had a heck of a time trying to figure that car out in the wet. I do not envy the challenge that he had to undertake for that one, but he knows his way around a track, that is for sure, and he's not afraid to put a bumper on a car and go for an aggressive move. And now it looks like he's stretching out a tiny lead over Jamie Lawrence at the moment. Hagen Johnson dropping back ever so slightly from those guys. So, and Thomas Toomey has made his way around Shea McNeely to claim a top 5 position right now. Now has a work cut out for him, trying to get past some pretty quick guys. Hagen Johnson just in front of him, and then Jamie Lawrence in equal machinery after that point, with half the race to go, 9 laps under our belts at this point in time. That's a pretty tall order there, Matthew, for Toomey to try to squeeze his way onto the podium.
Yeah, most certainly. You know, a little wiggle there from Jamie coming out of the last corner, but kept it together. But yeah, it'll be difficult for Thomas to get up to the front at this point. A bit chaotic at the start. I think there were some difficulties just trying to overtake some of the cars. I think the field is a lot closer in terms of lap time around this track, as we see Hagen Johnson with a little bit of a moment coming out of turn 1 that, you know, helps Thomas a little bit, getting one step closer to the podium. But, you know, now Thomas's sights are set firmly on that 3rd place, so we spoke it into existence. And then we start talking about how difficult it's going to be to get on the podium, and he's 1 spot away now. But definitely not the progress I think Thomas or Kyle Bonin would have wanted to make at this point in the race, but still they'll take what they can get.
Yeah, I think they definitely would have expected to be a little bit further up by this point. But either way, people making mistakes in front has helped Toomey pass Johnson, like you said. And here is Nick Daly on Andrew Williams, or Nick Stockner, I think. Yeah, Nick Stockner there on the inside. And Nick having a difficult time. Joined the session late, didn't get any practice in. So he's working his way up the field as well. But making a couple mistakes in the process. Typically a really, really quick driver, especially from what we saw last season, typically finishing on the podium in the alumni category, if not on the overall podium. Nick Daly, a excellent driver, especially behind the wheel of that Audi, in fact, but struggling a little bit here at the Red Bull Ring. I'm sure we'll talk to him later and figure out exactly why, but he's also recovering from a motorcycle accident, to be fair to him. He had a bit of a wreck at a motorcycle race, in fact, a mini MotoGP race in Texas that he was participating in. I think he broke a collarbone and maybe a couple of ribs as well. So maybe not 100% recovered from that one, but he is stretching out a bit of a gap now. Dick Stockner working his way up towards Andrew Williams, of course. And now it's Tyler Stone looking on the inside into turn 9. A lot of rotation in that Mercedes on the entry there. Had to gather it up before he even got to the apex, but just about got away with that pass. That is a pretty wild pass there. I'm not sure that was as planned as he expected, or I don't think that was the plan, let's say. But either way, a successful pass for 15th position there for Tyler Stone. And now to Fema Leclair trying to chase down Carl Lemcool. Carl working his way back up after getting tagged, like we said earlier, at turn 3 here. Athena, decent pace in that Porsche. We'll see if it's enough pace here, John, to capture the 11th place car right now, Carl Lemcool.
Yeah, I'm telling you, again, these drivers, they do not fear using the bumper to clear a driver. I think at turn 4, Tyler Stone really had to use the bumper just to tell Nicholas Stockner, yeah, no, I'm trying to get you. I'm ready to pass you, and he's ready to make the move. Looks like we're looking at this looks like Thomas Crump, I believe, with Jake Cummings not too far behind him in his Ferrari. I believe Cummings is probably still going to be a bit hot-headed after that slowdown or whatever happened when he was battling with Hay and Johnson, and later the spin incident that kind of he got collected in. So let's see if he can try to collect a couple positions to save something of this race here.
Yeah, we see he does have a decent amount of damage on the front end of that Ferrari. Despite that, his pace is not all that bad, really. A 30 flat, basically, which is half a tenth faster than Crump in front. So he is closing on the car in front, just not probably as fast as he would otherwise without that damage. But right now, back up to Hagen Johnson. This battle still very tight. It looks like Kyle Bonin has made his way past Hagen Johnson. And now Shea McNeely is up to the batter's box to try to send one on the inside potentially on Hagen Johnson, but not close enough down there in turn 4. But yeah, that pace from the Clemson Porsche right there, Kyle Bonin, very, very much coming into its own with 5 minutes left, 5.5 minutes left or so. On my screen, though, SDK again showing something different than what my screen shows, so we'll see which one's right here in roughly 5 minutes time. But either way, yeah, Hagen starting to struggle a little bit. Was really quick in this Mercedes all last season. Had a great run, specifically at Watkins Glen, which, Matthew, I think is probably more similar to this track than most others. Kind of similar sort of width and generally decent runoff at both, especially in turn 1. But struggling tonight to really get the most out of that Mercedes. I expected a little bit more pace out of Hagen Johnson, and definitely at least a top 5, but looks like he's struggling a little bit at the moment.
Yeah, it looks like Hagen Johnson, maybe he missed with the setup this week, or just getting, I know there's recently been a big update to the GT3s and how their setups work, so can't remember if Watkins Glen, was before or after that update, but just trying to find the car underneath him, maybe struggling with tires a little bit, but can't be too sure at this stage. But it looks like Thomas Toomey, fantastic exit coming out of turn 3, almost hitting Jamie Lawrence on the exit there, but he's going to have a great run going down to turn 4, hopefully getting the move done if he can. Maybe fake inside, go outside, but we'll have to see. That straight line speed of Jamie Lawrence looks like it was just a little bit too much for Thomas as he head down into turn 4. Couldn't quite get there, but that Porsche v Porsche battle still going to move on through the rest of this lap.
Yeah, if I've learned one thing from watching Jamie Lawrence, he likes a car that moves around a lot. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if he's running less wing than Thomas Toomey is in this race. We know Thomas is running 6 degrees of attack. I would be betting that Lawrence is probably at 4 or 5. Because he had a pretty terrible exit there from turn 3, which is allowed Toomey to get up underneath that bumper. But you can see just how much further back he is now. I mean, he can't deal with the straight line speed of that 007 machine just in front. But it's a three-way battle here between alumni Ted Burns, Jamie Lawrence, and Toomey. Ryan Whitlock 2.1 seconds up the road, so that gap is coming down now that Ted Burns isn't battling or defending as much from Jamie Lawrence behind. But if Thomas Toomey has anything to say about it, that will change before this race is over. If he can get past Jamie Lawrence, that is a second podium here tonight, 1 win and 1 third place. but still plenty of time left in this race for who knows what to happen. That 007 machine, again, fast in a straight line, moves over to defend for turn 3. Thomas tries to send it in deep on the brakes, maybe do the over-under on him. Takes a little bit of curb there on the inside. That's going to kick him into traction control, which you really want to stay out of on these cars. If you're in traction control, then your wheels are arguably over-slipping, and there's just so much lag in that drivetrain and gearbox that it takes a long time for that wheel to grip back up again and reach its sort of optimum slip ratio. But he's tucked right back under, so in the higher speed corners such as turn 4, that car looks really good. We'll see if he can do well here, John, through turn 6, 7, 8, and 9, leaning back down onto what's probably maybe 3 laps to go, 4 laps to go, something like that.
I'm not sure. I'd say probably about 3 to go, but yeah, I think Jamie Lawrence might have enough grip in this car that he should be able to defend against him. I'm rooting for him to defend against Toomey. Looks like we had a spinner in turn 10. Not sure who that was.
Kyle Bonin.
Is that Bonin?
No, I think it's a lap car.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yep, indeed it is.
But yeah, it looks like Toomey's on the inside as he goes into him. He has a better judgment, breaks a bit earlier than Lawrence, just to kind of give himself some space to not go a bit too deep and rear end Lawrence. But I'm rooting for him. I want to see him on the podium here because it seems like he worked so hard to keep this position, to fight multiple different drivers, multiple different cars to keep this position. Toomey has a look on the inside going into 3. It doesn't look like he gets much. It doesn't stick. It looks like he got a bit of oversteer on exiting 3. You don't want to get that
bump on the inside. Yeah, it's that bump on the inside for the 166 that's really hurting his exits out there. He's just getting straight into traction control and not able to close down after that happens. So that's definitely going to be an advantage for Jamie Lawrence out of that corner. And John, I tell you what else, if there's one guy I really don't want to have to overtake in a race like this, it's probably Jamie Lawrence, because, I mean, we've seen what he can do before. He and Ted going 3 wide with Hagan Johnson down there in turn 4. That's a dicey situation. I mean, Matthew, you and I have talked about it before on the broadcast already, how that typically doesn't end happy for everybody if it's even just 2 cars going in there, and somehow Ted Burns on the outside, Jamie Lawrence on the inside, were able to make that one work, which is just sort of a testament to both their car control skills, but also their willingness to sort of go for the move whenever it presents itself. Really enjoy watching these guys race like that. Toomey a little bit wide out of the corner, but carries a lot of speed. So we'll see, Matthew, if he can make a move here into turn 1. If not, he ideally should tuck behind and set up for turn 3, but does he want to do that? Jamie Lawrence, a little bit of internet issues, playing mind games there with Toomey. No, they go side by side through turn 1, but Matthew, it's going to be a drag race up here to turn 3.
Yeah, I think Thomas is well aware of just how well Jamie's been defending and holding him off in turn 3. So getting the run down into turn 3 now with a good move on the exit in turn 1 is absolutely critical. But that straight line speed of Jamie Lawrence, a little deep in the brakes, lets Thomas Toomey through. Just couldn't quite do it around the outside, but gonna try to make it another run back at it into turn 4. That straight line speed of Jamie Lawrence is gonna come into effect here, tucking right up behind the rear wing of Thomas Toomey, as we saw Ted Burns kind of flash his lights that Ryan in front.
Oh!
They go side by side and touch a little bit. Going down into turn 4, it looks like Jamie Lawrence gets it up the track to the outside. It's going to allow both Thomas and potentially Kyle Bonin through. Looks like Kyle and Jamie are going to go side by side in turn 6. Hopefully, we'll see if they can make a little bit of a clean race of it here, no contact, but giving each other plenty of room. They both give a lot of each other a lot of respect, but Kyle Bonin makes his way through up into 4th after a pretty exciting turn 4.
A pretty exciting turn 4 indeed. That was a touch under braking between Lawrence and Toomey, and luckily Toomey survived a little bit better than Lawrence did, at least for his sake. But yeah, like you said, Lawrence losing 2 positions in just about 1 corner, more or less. And now Kyle Bonin gets to show what he can do and try to hunt down Thomas Toomey 0.8 of a second in front of him. Meanwhile, Shea McNeely there trying to close down on Hagan Johnson for the 6th and 7th position. And I think we saw a white flag in the air that last lap by, so this will be last lap of the race. Ted Burns is fighting for the lead with Ryan Whitlock approaching lapped traffic, no less. Up here into turn 3, Ted is late on the brakes. We'll see who gets the better exit. Ted gets a really good exit, hops the curb a little bit. We'll see if he can use the car as a pick, but I don't think that's going to happen. He's trying to flash his lights and saying, hey, we're lap traffic. Let us through here, please, if you don't mind. And they're doing so here into turn 4, late on the brakes for Ryan Whitlock on the inside. Hard to overtake when you're that far back on the outside, and Whitlock manages to maintain the advantage here, but down through this next section, it is more difficult to overtake than the last couple of corners, so it's going to be all on Ted to see if he can get closed up and maybe send one down on the inside of the 9. We've seen it work before tonight, but it is going to be very nip and tuck. Ryan Whitlock on the verge of potentially his first CIL win here. He's only got a handful of corners left, just 2 corners left, 9 and 10. Very tricky corners, but he should have it totally under control here. Takes the optimum line in the corner. Ted is too far back, runs out just as wide as he needs to, and then just needs to be nice and smooth out of turn 10 to come here across the line and win the second race here tonight for the CIL opening race of the 2022 summer season. Ted Burns claiming second position overall, and Thomas Toomey third, Kyle Bond in fourth, and then Jamie Lawrence in fifth. John, that was pretty close there at the end between the two guys, but even as I say that, looks like there's still battles happening on track.
Yeah, I was fearing that. I know I was rooting for Lawrence earlier. It looks like that fell through. I was talking about someone else earlier, and that fell through. So I'm glad I didn't have every commentator's curse happen tonight, but it was quite close. It'd be interesting just to ask him if Tyler kind of hurt him. Looks like Nicholas Stockton was fighting against Scott Ratliff, but some oversteer coming out of turn 8 will be hindering his chances of getting P17 as they cross the line in just a moment.
Yeah, and looks like who else had a good finish here tonight? Hunter Haddesty did a good job holding on to 10th position and takes that final spot in the top 10, moved up 4 positions in the race. Nick Daly moved up 6 positions, but I think the hard charge award is going to go to Toomey for that third place finish. The final podium spot moved up 9 positions after having won the previous race. That's about as good of a result as you can expect from Thomas Toomey. Did a good job keeping the fenders on that Porsche, working his way all the way back up through the field. As we watch Thomas Crump just take a little bit of a cool down lap here as we wrap on up our first race of the season. Matthew, any big takeaways from this second race that we saw? A little bit of a different sort of outcome than what we saw for the first race, where it really got stretched out. There were battles, the top 3 guys were more or less together most of the time, save for Ryan Whitlock, and a few other battles throughout the field.
Yeah, I think especially on this track, the field invert did wonders to keep the guys close together. I also think that this year, I think the field got a lot tighter in terms of speed. So, maybe last season we had a bit more of a bigger speed differential between the inverted pole position and the guy who won the first race. But I think this season we're seeing a lot closer lap times between those guys. And I don't know if that's a track specific thing where there aren't that many corners on this track, or if it's just the skill level. But I think that it's going to be harder for some of those first race winners and the guys who do well in the first race to progress in the field like they did last season.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. We'll get the winners up here in the booth in just a moment. But, John, I want to ask you a question. Were there any corners that kind of surprised you at this track as to where we saw people be able to really defend more or overtake more than what we commonly see here at the Red Bull Ring?
Yeah, it looks like a lot of like switchback type moves happen in 3, but passes on the outside into turn 4, I believe, or turn 5, whichever if you determine tiny kinks as corners, then I guess it's turn 5. They're normally like F1, you'd see like Albon on a Mercedes and ends up in the gravel, but here that never really happened. It seems like either there's some mutual respect here that isn't present in other places, but definitely some drivers able to kind of go a bit brave and making those moves where you don't really expect on turn 5.
Yeah, there was certainly a lot of bravery. So speaking of bravery, it looks like we get to talk to our winner, Ryan Whitlock from the University of Huntsville, Alabama. And Ryan, congratulations. First off, I think you were in the Discord in the offseason with a number 2 or 3 memes with pain and sadness, but it looks like those are in your past, man. You got the checkered flag.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, last season, I think I finished top 5 in points, but without a single podium all season. So I knew I had the consistency. I know I had the pace. I just, had to go that extra step to bring it home.
Yeah, great job defending there at the end, especially with the lap traffic and trying to block Ted. Were you trying to use that lap traffic as maybe a pick on Ted if you could? But either way, it worked out for you.
Yeah, I definitely wanted the draft from that lapped car going into the second braking zone, which was nice. But then he stayed there going into, I don't know, turn 5 or whatever it is. So I was like, oh boy. And I knew Ted was a lot deeper going into that second braking zone. That's where he made up time every lap. So I knew just put him on the outside there, and that's his best shot.
Yeah, certainly. I was wondering, so I think in the middle of the race, there was quite a heated battle for the couple other podium positions from, I believe, like P2 to P7, probably. Was there any sort of like you talking to yourself or trying to remind yourself, just focus on your own race, or kind of getting a bit giddy seeing the other drivers slow themselves down because they're battling?
Yeah, so I actually had my real life short track racing coach, Matthew Tucker, watching the race, kind of doing an engineer role rather than a conventional oval spotter. And he was just telling me, don't even look at your mirrors, just hit your marks. And I did the best I could. I definitely feel like the top 12 invert helps me out a lot. You know, I got damaged last race and barely held on to 12th. And that was the goal, and it paid off in race 2.
Yeah, that sounds just absolutely fantastic, bringing in your real driving coach to come help in the CIL. But one thing that I was curious about in the first race, we saw a few drivers get some black flags and some penalties with regards to track limits and maybe not slowing down quick enough. Was that in the back of your mind, maybe when you had that larger lead, maybe saving your off tracks so that, you know, if it did come down to it, which it did at the end with you racing with Ted, you could maybe use some of those off tracks to your advantage?
Yeah, I mean, this season in the CIL, it's a very American-heavy schedule, and U.S. tracks don't have these miles and miles of runoff to work with. So I definitely used them some to my advantage, but at the same time, I knew that the off tracks and the slowdowns would be there waiting for me if I, you know, got a little too aggressive. So I took it as easy as I felt like I needed to.
Yeah, just absolutely great race for me, Ryan. Congratulations again on the win. Is there anyone you want to thank or shout out before you head out tonight?
Yeah, I want to shout out the entirety of Charger Motorsports. We're a UAH club, and we do short track racing at a local track near the school. You know, follow us on every social media at Charger M Sports, and I got to thank Matthew for engineering me today and all the guys on the team. It's a wonderful club, and I'm really proud to be a part of it.
All right, Ryan. Thanks again. Great job on the race tonight, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Man, I tell you what, I really do enjoy seeing it for the viewers that followed Season 4 across the spring semester for these guys and for this team, the Spaceship and Saturn V rocket. Guys, I'm going to say had some bad luck. Just you know, we're taking the right shots and they were not falling. But starting the season off right, and that's fun to see. That team has worked, as you heard, it's more than just Ryan behind the wheel. That team has worked hard to put that car where it is. So another driver who has worked hard is Ted Burns from the University of Wisconsin, bringing it home second tonight. Ted, congratulations. And what was your take on the racing action out there tonight?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun out there. It was really stiff competition. It was hard to really get some good runs going, so I had to be really on top of and try and set up your exits best you could. It was a fun race though.
Yeah, it was a fun one to watch up here, man, and it's John up here in the booth. I'm happy to report I'll be able to go and tell Rishi about your race here tonight and how good that overtake was down there into, I think, turn 4, I want to say, where Jamie went to the inside, you dove to the outside really quickly, both going around Hagen Johnson. Talk me through that move a little bit.
Yeah, it was a tough one. I started trying to set that up back in turn 1 and get a huge run out because I could tell I was a little bit quicker than those guys in some of the slower corners, so it was just trying to get the right lane past, and going into the first hairpin, couldn't quite get it done. Drive wasn't quite right, but I made sure to try and swing it out and tried to do an over-under on the both of them, and so we were about 3 wide going down the back straight there, and I knew that having me on the inside would try and draw them over there, and defend the inside, which could give me an opportunity into turn 4. So I went out, took a normal racing line, and just cut up under the inside of him. I was able to get the power down. Luckily, no contact or anything, and drive out of there. And it was tough, but very satisfying to get past the 2 cars there and in that one section.
Yeah, certainly. We know you closed in a lot in the coming laps. I don't know if that was due to you preserving your tires, but was there any sort of strategy for the long game of the race, or were you just kind of running your own race?
Yeah, in the first race, I started trying to kind of slipping up a little bit, like in my driving, like myself. So I made sure to really focus in my reference points, and I wasn't too concerned about burning the tires off of it. Setup stayed really solid throughout the race. But I was just trying to stay consistent and put in the lap times I knew the car had in it. So it was just a little tricky to manage it from that regard. But made a couple changes going into race 2 that really worked out and allowed me to stay up there and try and battle for the win.
Yeah, Ted, congrats on the alumni class win tonight. I know earlier you were talking to John about not being as fast out of the slow speed corners. Was that a setup change or a setup direction you had tonight where you wanted to prioritize straight line speed over some cornering speed, or were you more focused about just other aspects of your setup?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing at Red Bull Ring is just making sure it's a really balanced car and you're able to point it into where you want, because it's really easy to overcook the entries and just get a little bit of understeer and or go too far getting the front end dialed in, and then you have some snap oversteer. It makes the rear end a bit unpredictable. So just getting that nice balance was key, and it made the Audi just a little slow on the straights, I think. So I was just making sure I could get the best run out of a corner I could, so that I could at least match the other cars down the straight going into the next brake zone. Make sure I didn't get in the TC out of the hairpin. Just stuff like that, keeping it tidy and fast.
Yeah, setup's always super important around tracks, especially like the Red Bull Ring. Anyone you want to shout out or thank tonight before we send you on your way?
Yeah, I'd love to thank all you guys here at CiL. It's a great league. I know I've met quite a few guys in real life, and it's just crazy the amount of networking that's gone on here between friends working like with John and meeting up with Carl and getting him a job with me at Kelly Moss. So just love to thank everyone in the league. I also like to thank Downforce Racing. Had Carl Lemcool and Nick Daly added to that team, and so we were able to work together on an Audi setup this week, and made it as fast as we could. So thanks to those guys and everyone for putting on just a great broadcast.
Well, that's fantastic here, Ted. Congrats again on the alumni win, and have a good evening.
Thanks, you too.
That's Ted Burns again from the University of Wisconsin with a really good, guys, clean run tonight, and a lot of fun to watch and a lot of fun to see the race and racecraft. A little bit different flavor from every driver that we have through here, and Ted able to walk us through quite succinctly his thought process on some of those split-second decisions and moves, and I think that's what sets him apart. And John Price, no doubt, aided by his experience on track. You mentioned rain or shine, you can find Ted near some race cars, and I think that is what we saw on track tonight.
Yeah, most definitely. Ted knows his way around just about every single car he's been in or worked on, and that doesn't only help you in the real world, helps you in iRacing quite a bit as well. I mean, you heard him talk about the setup there, working with Nick Daly and Carl Lemcool, working with Nick Daly. A good setup here for tonight, and Ted made the most of it, man. He's an excellent driver, and actually met him in real life out at I want to say Road America. Maybe even last year or the year before that. Awesome guy in real life, great to talk to, and a great competitor here in the CiL.
100%. So, finally, your third podium finisher from the University of Virginia, Thomas Toomey. Thomas, excellent race. Congratulations on the podium this evening. Tell us your thoughts on tonight's race.
Yeah, that second race was a fun one. It was pretty tough to get past a lot of the guys. It was a pretty clean racing overall. There was that one wreck in the beginning. I think it was on lap 3. But other than that, we were battling pretty hard side by side. Everyone was keeping clean, and it was a fun one.
Yeah, we mentioned it on the broadcast, Thomas, how we expected you to sort of move up through the field a little bit quicker than you did. Did you find difficulty trying to get past in like just a big draft train where, the guy in front of you has just as much advantage as you do?
Yeah, there was definitely some traffic. Right at the very end, Jamie was slowing me down the most. He was battling really hard. Kudos to him for racing super hard. He was running, I think, a medium downforce set because as soon as I would get a good run out of the corner, he would just somehow pull away from me, and I could not get my nose up the inside for the longest time. But it was fun regardless.
Yeah, certain congratulations on the podium. You won the first race of the night. Were you kind of taking any lessons you learned in race one to maybe change your setup and change your driving style, change your braking markers for the second race to help your chances now that you had to fight your way up?
Yeah, I felt this track really burns off the rear tires very quickly. So what I did is once I started to feel any sort of wear, I started to shift the brake bias forwards prematurely just to get the wear even between the front and the rear. And at the end, I was able to click it back to get some more rotation and some good pace.
Yeah, we talked to you earlier about having a good first race and being, nose to tail with Kyle Bonin for a lot of that first race. And same thing happened again in the second race, Thomas. So how much are you learning from not only your own driving and how the car develops over time, but watching other drivers like Kyle Bonin, who you were around all night tonight, and seeing what kind of lines he's taking?
Yeah, it's very interesting to kind of study each driver. Each driver has their own strengths and weaknesses and specific lines that they like to take. I know Kyle likes a car that turns a lot on the brakes, so there was times that he was 3-4 tenths back and he would be right on my rear bumper, and I would pull out of the corner and we would be back to the same gap that we were before. So different strengths and weaknesses in different corners. It definitely teaches you to have a overall balanced setup and not just be good at a few specific corners, but to be able to defend as well.
Yeah, Thomas, great racing tonight from you and everyone around you. Is there anything you want, or anyone you want to shout out or thank before we send you on your way tonight?
Yeah, I want to thank my parents for watching this and Virginia Motorsports, as well as CiL. This is a fun one.
All right, Thomas. Well, congratulations again on the podium finish in the second race tonight. Have a good evening.
Thanks, guys.
And that was Thomas Toomey, your third place finisher. And guys, I think that had all the elements that we look for tonight. A lot of fun being able to see cars battle up and down the field. See a couple race, and the inverts really played into, I'm going to say, Ryan Whitlock and that University of Alabama at Huntsville team.
Yeah, most definitely it did. I mean, what really worked in his benefit not only was that, but also the guys behind getting a little bit tangled up and tripping over each other in a few different places. But either way, not only did Ryan Whitlock benefit from it, but Thomas Toomey really made the most of it as well. He's going to come away with 85 points here tonight and be officially in the lead of the Alumni Championship, and I think have more points than most of the other students as well. So a really good run for Toomey here tonight. We'll see if he can carry that performance forward into future races. John?
Yeah, certainly. I know. I was going to say, so we had a lot of kind of argy-bargy, a lot of the contact that I've mentioned. But the next race that we have in the series is Laguna Seca, which we all know is a really small track. It has I think in a GT3, maybe a lap time of about, I want to say, 70 seconds, a minute 10. So, and it's just so short that you're going to definitely be tripping over traffic. So, like that last lap, lapped car will be a lot more common come next race at Laguna Seca.
Yeah, and Laguna Seca's always got these technical sections. They got the corkscrew as an iconic corner, but I think it's going to be a really difficult challenge for drivers there because really the only main overtaking spot at a place like Laguna Seca is the turn one, the hairpin. So expect to see drivers maybe a bit more aggressive at the next race, but one thing that really surprised me tonight was the amount of alumni up at the front. In previous seasons, we've had the alumni and they maybe don't dominate near the front. We might have 1 or 2 drivers in the alumni class near the front of the overall field. But tonight, I think it was like 4 of our top 5 were alumni drivers. I think that's just a matter of fact of drivers in the student class, coming up, graduating, and then moving on to the next class, which I think is going to be a challenge for a lot of the student drivers to kind of navigate now that there are some more faster alumni. But I think it'll be a really interesting challenge to continue to watch throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, no doubt. Agree with all of that. But either way, Josh, I think that just about wraps it on up here tonight at Red Bull Ring. And I think I looked at the schedule correctly, and we've got Laguna Seca in 2 weeks, don't we? So that'll be, like John mentioned earlier, a very interesting one to watch. And then, I can't remember who said it. I want to say it was Ryan Whitlock. A very heavily biased American schedule. I think we have Barber on the schedule as well this weekend. Very much looking forward to that one, a new one for the CIL, Josh. But either way, a full schedule for this summer season.
Yeah, I got some new tracks and some popular tracks as well on this summer season, Season 5's 6-week schedule, 6-race schedule across 12 weeks with some oval races sprinkled in there. Tune in next Tuesday for CIL Oval's Season 5 debut at Talladega Superspeedway. It will be quick and a little bit of room to get 3 wide. So we'll be there, same time next week, about 8:45 p.m. Eastern. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you then.